Good evening. This is December 7th, and this is the second installment in the Why series concerning the advent of Jesus. As we look forward to Christmas, I've been doing a few videos just asking some questions why. Why Bethlehem is kind of the theme. And tonight we're focusing on that question, why Bethlehem? We all know that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, but have you ever stopped to think about the significance of that? Have you ever asked why Bethlehem? I have 7 children. 5 were born in Percy, 1 was born in Philadelphia, and 1 in, wait for it, yes, Bethlehem. One of my children was actually born in Bethlehem. Now, of course, we know that's not the same Bethlehem where Jesus was born, but it's still pretty neat. Anyway, when I think about why one of my children was born in Bethlehem, my wife and I had a good reason. I won't go into that now, but trust me, there was a reason. So how about Jesus' birth? Why did God choose to be born in Bethlehem? It would seem that the creator of the whole universe, the one who started it all, could have chosen anywhere. Maybe Jerusalem. That was the religious center of the Jewish faith, where the temple to worship him was. Or maybe Rome, the capital of the greatest kingdom of the time. He was, after all, the king. But why Bethlehem? Bethlehem was a small, out-of-the-way place that really didn't have a lot to offer. It wasn't a commercial hub. It wasn't a major transportation center. It was small. It was dirty. It was insignificant. So why Bethlehem? I want to suggest 2 biblical reasons and 1 more very practical reason. First, Jesus' birth in Bethlehem fulfilled the prophecy of Micah 5:2, where it says, "But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will rule over Israel, whose origins are from of old, from ancient times." The religious leaders of Jesus' day understood that that was a reference to the birthplace of the Messiah. So when the wise men came looking for the special child, the religious scholars went to Micah 5:2 and said, "Look for him in Bethlehem." The second reason that why Christmas, the Messiah was expected to come from the family of King David. In 2 Samuel chapter 7, beginning at verse 12, God tells David, "When your days are over and you rest with your ancestors, I will raise up your offspring to succeed you, your own flesh and blood, and I will establish his kingdom, and he is the one who will build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be his father, and he will be my son." And God continued in verse 16 by saying, "Your house and your kingdom will endure forever before me. Your throne will be established forever." That passage was well known by the religious leaders of Jesus' day, and everyone knew that the Messiah would be a descendant of David. And while David's descendants had spread out over the whole land, Bethlehem was their hometown. David's family ties can be traced back to the time of the Judges, because Boaz, the husband of Ruth, and Ruth's mother-in-law were both from Bethlehem. And that's where David's father and his grandfather and his great-grandfather had grown up. It was home. It was where they all went to celebrate their family reunions. So those 2 biblical reasons why Jesus was born in Bethlehem. But if you noticed, both are based in prophecy. One prophecy through Micah, the other prophecy by God to David. And that brings me to another very practical reason why Jesus was born in Bethlehem. That reason being that by fulfilling both of those prophecies, and many more besides, God has once again proven his trustworthiness. He did what he said he would do, even when it looked like it would be impossible. Just imagine Mary gets a message from the angel that she would miraculously become pregnant. Joseph is told by the angel that this pregnancy is from God and that he should receive the child. But they're in Nazareth with no plans to travel to Bethlehem. I don't know all the arm twisting that went on behind the scenes, but I can imagine Joseph saying to Mary, "Honey, I know you're in your 8th month, your tummy is kind of big, and you look terribly uncomfortable, but I'd like to go visit the old family stomping ground in Bethlehem. It's just a 3-day walk, and you can ride the donkey part of the time. What do you think? Can we go?" That's a bit absurd, but that's what God had to work with. And so God caused the Roman emperor to declare a tax that forced everyone to report to their family home to register. And Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Why is that important? Because it proves once again the certainty of God's prophecies, his promises. What God says will come to be, no matter how unlikely or absurd it may sound. If God said it, it is as good as done. And that reminder is something that we all need for these difficult and uncertain times. We get ourselves into situations that seem overwhelming or impossible. And in those situations, it's easy to forget God's promises. But this story reminds us that God's promises are bigger than any circumstance. If God promised it, it will be. I like the passage in Isaiah 9 where God, speaking through the prophet Isaiah, looks forward to the coming of the Messiah, the birth of Jesus Christ. And there he says, "The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned." And he goes on to say, "For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. He will reign on David's throne and over his kingdom, establishing and upholding it with justice and righteousness from that time on and forever." And then God concludes with this powerful statement, "The zeal of the Lord Almighty will accomplish this." The zeal of the Lord. That makes me excited about the fact that Jesus was born in Bethlehem. The zeal of the Lord. The word zeal means enthusiasm in pursuit of a cause or an objective. God has a cause, an objective. And that zeal is not limited to Jesus being born in Bethlehem. God has zeal concerning the salvation of the lost. He tells us in 2 Peter 3:9 that he is patient with us, not wanting anyone to perish, but for all to come to salvation. It would be so much easier for God to just end it now, to roll up the heavens and call it a day. But somewhere out there, there's another soul that will one day turn to him for salvation. So he waits. God doesn't lose heart or grow impatient. He waits until the perfect time. Maybe that person is listening to this and God is calling. The Advent season would be a great time to be saved, to be forgiven. After all, that is almost as unlikely as Jesus being born in Bethlehem. But the zeal of the Lord will accomplish it. Come to him for Christmas. So that is my other reason for why Bethlehem. So that people like me and people like you can be encouraged by knowing that God can be trusted. All of his promises will be fulfilled in the right time and in accordance with his perfect will. As we celebrate Advent this season, with all of its activities and decorations, take some time to remember God's promises and the certainty that we can enjoy in knowing that they will all come true. We can count on him. Thanks for listening. I wish you a Merry Christmas. God bless.